A local cop pulled a gun on a man getting coffee, laughed at his Secret Service badge, and minutes later he found himself surrounded, disarmed, and exposed in front of a crowd that caught everything on camera. It happened on a Tuesday morning, not early enough to feel like the world was still asleep, but just late enough that traffic near Spartanburg had started to clog up with folks grabbing coffee and rushing into meetings they didn't want to be in. Quinton Dre pulled into the Chevron on East Blackstock Road, just west of town. Black SUV, low profile, government plates. He looked like someone who belonged in D.C., not tucked between Pump 6 and the red box machine near the ice cooler. A tall, solid man in his 40s with quiet eyes and the kind of posture that made people step aside without being asked. He wore a charcoal suit, clean white shirt, no tie. Just the earpiece in his right ear and a small flash of silver at his waist, the badge that only became visible if you were really looking. He wasn't grabbing snacks or stalling for time, he just needed caffeine. 1 cup, black. That's it. As he stepped out of the convenience store, coffee in hand, that's when the officer pulled in. Ray Denslow, county deputy. Broad chest, buzz cut, aviators even though it was cloudy. He parked fast, cutting the wheel hard, barely in the lines. Saw Quinton, saw the SUV, saw the suit. And that's all he needed. "You with that vehicle?" he asked, stepping out fast, one hand resting on his sidearm. Quinton looked over calmly. "Yes, sir." "Keys!" Denslow barked, moving closer now. "You got registration? What's your name?" Quinton raised an eyebrow. "Sir, I'm on official duty. I can show you my—" "I asked for your name!" Denslow snapped, voice louder, eyes twitching behind the sunglasses, his hand now fully gripping the holster. A few folks glanced over from the pumps. One man near the car wash paused, phone in hand. Quinton kept his voice even. "My name is Deputy Chief Quinton Dre, United States Secret Service." That only seemed to fuel Denslow more. He took 2 fast steps forward, close now, posture aggressive. "Don't play games with me," he said. "Everybody's got a story. You look real confident in that suit, huh? That your cousin's car? Brothers? You lifted off somebody?" Quinton blinked. "I can reach for my credentials." "Slowly. They're in my jacket." Denslow snorted. "You think I haven't seen fake badges before?" He took a step back, drew his gun. A woman near Pump 2 gasped audibly. "Hands where I can see them!" he shouted. Quinton didn't flinch. He set the coffee down on the ground, knelt slowly, then laced his fingers behind his head. His voice stayed level. "I am not a threat. My badge is in my left inside pocket." Denslow didn't care. He chuckled, weapon still pointed. "Man thinks he's in a movie." Quinton glanced at the growing number of people stopping to watch. Someone across the parking lot raised a phone. The officer circled slowly, trying to get behind Quinton. "Bet you got backup in that SUV, huh? You recording this with your boys?" Quinton said nothing. Silence was safer. But then came the moment that shifted everything. The moment Denslow leaned down and yanked open the SUV's door. He didn't find drugs. No weapons. Just a laptop docked into the console and a government-issued ID clipped to the glove box lining. He hesitated. Then Quinton spoke, clear enough for everyone to hear. "You just opened a secured federal vehicle without probable cause." Denslow's eyes narrowed. "Yeah? And you just impersonated a federal officer." That's when another car pulled into the station. Another black SUV, tinted windows, quiet engine. Denslow didn't see it yet. His focus stayed locked on Quinton, gun still drawn. But someone inside that second SUV definitely saw everything, and they weren't laughing. Officer Ray Denslow's finger hovered just a little too close to the trigger. He paced around Quinton like a man rehearsing dominance, jaw clenched, words coming faster. The badge meant nothing to him. The calm demeanor, the confident posture, none of it registered. "You got smart answers, huh?" Denslow muttered. "Let's see how long that lasts." Quinton stayed kneeling on the asphalt, hands behind his head. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain again. He just waited. 2 kids from the neighborhood had stopped near the snack machine, eyes wide, recording. A middle-aged man leaned against his pickup at Pump 4, arms folded, watching. And now, the second SUV had rolled to a full stop near the air pump. Denslow turned his head at the sound of a car door shutting. A woman stepped out, tall, light brown skin, wearing all black, earpiece in. No hesitation in her walk. "Dre, status?" she asked. Quinton didn't move. Non-compliant local officer. Drawn weapon. Unauthorized search of a secured vehicle. I've not resisted. The woman's eyes snapped to Denslow. "You want to explain what the hell you're doing?" Denslow turned, lowering his gun just an inch. "Who are you?" She pulled her credentials from her chest pocket. "Senior Agent Kendra Moss, United States Secret Service. That man is my superior." Denslow blinked. The tension cracked just slightly, but pride held him back. He claimed to be Secret Service. I wasn't about to take that at face value. "You pulled a weapon on a federal officer," she said sharply. "That's not doubt. That's a felony." For a second, it looked like he might argue again, but his voice came out quieter. He didn't look. "Don't finish that sentence," she cut in. "You already said too much." A third SUV turned into the lot. This one faster, more aggressive. Two men stepped out. Suits, no sunglasses, guns holstered, but hands alert. One of them, a sharp-featured man with grey temples, walked straight to Quinton and lowered his voice. "Deputy Chief Dre, are you injured?" "No, sir." "We're rolling body cams. Witnesses recording. Local law enforcement failed to verify credentials before drawing. Confirm?" "Confirmed," Quinton replied, still on his knees. Kendra glanced at him. "You can stand, sir." Quinton rose slowly. Dust on his pants. Calm. Still. He adjusted the hem of his jacket like he was heading into a boardroom, not standing in a gas station parking lot where a gun had just been in his face. And still, Officer Denslow didn't back down fully. He turned to the agents, chest puffed. "You people don't come rolling through here with special treatment. I did what I thought was right." "You thought wrong," the agent with grey temples said. "And you're now the subject of a federal misconduct report." A man in the crowd shouted, "I got it on video!" Another yelled, "He had a gun out on that dude the whole time!" Denslow looked around. The walls were closing in, and his tone shifted. "I didn't mean anything by it. I had reason to believe—" "No, you had bias," Kendra said, stepping forward. "And now you've got a situation." Quinton finally looked at him directly. His voice was calm, like he was talking about the weather. "I was getting coffee. You decided I didn't belong. That's all this is." Denslow said nothing. His face flushed under the weight of eyes watching him. The phones, the agents, the people he'd assumed wouldn't care. A young woman near the entrance of the store whispered to the person next to her, "He really just pulled a gun on that guy and laughed at his badge?" But it wasn't a whisper anymore. The story was spreading in real time. Posts were going up. "Black federal agent harassed by local cop in Spartanburg." The videos were already being shared before Denslow could even holster his weapon. But things were about to go further than just being filmed. The law was now involved, and it wasn't on Denslow's side. It took less than 3 minutes for the third SUV's arrival to turn that gas station into something much heavier. Nobody shouted. Nobody threw cuffs. But every second after Quinton stood up felt like the air got tighter. Not louder, just more aware. The man with grey temples stepped forward again, flipping open his badge for the officer to finally read properly. "Supervisory Special Agent Lyle Mercer," he said, low and clear. "I need you to surrender your weapon and step away from Deputy Chief Dre." Denslow blinked twice. "You're serious? We're not asking," Mercer replied. "This stop was unauthorized, the weapon draw was unjustified, and you've already tampered with a federal vehicle. You're now under administrative detainment pending full review." For a moment, Denslow stood still. Too still. Then his hand twitched toward his belt again. Instinct maybe, but a bad one. The two agents behind Mercer shifted forward instantly. No weapons drawn, just presence. Enough to stop that motion cold. Kendra spoke again, this time with a clipped patience. "Don't make this worse for yourself. It was then that Denslow seemed to realize just how badly he'd misread the entire situation. His face changed. Not guilt exactly, but the shock of someone who thought they were in charge right up until the moment they weren't. Slowly, he unclipped his holster, removed the firearm, and held it grip first toward Mercer. One of the agents stepped in and took it from him. "Hands where we can see them," Mercer instructed. Denslow obeyed, jaw tight, shoulders pulled back like he was trying to act like this was routine, like he still had control. Kendra turned to Quinton. "You good, sir?" Quinton gave a short nod. "Better now." They stood there for a beat longer. The world hadn't gone silent. Someone's gas pump beeped that it had finished. A semi rolled by on the highway. A ringtone went off inside the store. But the mood was crystal clear. The only voice that mattered next came from the crowd. "Y'all seeing this?" someone asked loudly. "Better get his badge number," another shouted. A guy near Pump 7 yelled, "Yo, I got the whole thing, man. The whole thing. You want it? I'll send it." Mercer glanced over. "We'll want every copy, yes. Our team will be in touch. Y'all taking him in?" Someone else asked. "No," Mercer said calmly. "Not yet. We're processing it right here." 2 more black vehicles pulled in, this time unmarked sedans. Department of Homeland Security, likely notified when Quinton's badge ID hit their alert system during the confrontation. At this point, Denslow looked like he was shrinking inside his uniform. It wasn't the weight of handcuffs or shackles. It was worse than that. The knowledge that it was all out of his hands. That the badge on his chest didn't shield him anymore. Mercer walked toward him again. "Deputy, you'll sit in that vehicle over there while we finish initial reports. You'll be monitored and recorded." Denslow tried to speak. This isn't how things are done around here." "No," Mercer said. "That's exactly the problem." Denslow got into the unmarked sedan without another word. As the agents turned back to their vehicles, Mercer's voice dropped to speak only to Quinton. "We'll get the preliminary documentation done by noon. Media's going to get hold of it fast. You sure you're ready for that?" Quinton exhaled, slow but steady. "I didn't ask for this kind of attention." "You didn't? But it found you." Across the lot, a young man looked straight into his phone camera, still filming. "Yo, this just went crazy. Guy was just trying to get coffee. Secret Service. Cuffed a local cop. It's real out here, but the headlines weren't the end. They were just the start of a bigger storm. One the department and the public weren't ready to ignore. By the time the sun climbed to its peak over Spartanburg, the video was already on 4 major news sites. The first post came from someone named @LowLowUpstate, a grainy but clear 30-second clip where Officer Denslow could be seen aiming his gun while Quinton knelt calmly on the pavement. The caption? "He told him he was Secret Service. Dude laughed. Guess who's in cuffs now?" The post hit 50,000 shares before the hour was out. Inside the Field Command SUV parked near Pump 8, Quinton sat with Kendra, Lyle Mercer, and a DHS liaison named Rachel Fenwick. She typed quickly, occasionally glancing at the footage being forwarded to them in waves. "We've confirmed 5 separate videos from civilian bystanders," she said. "Audio's clean on 3 of them. No editing. Straight uploads." Mercer looked over at Quinton. "You want to go on record today, or wait for official channels?" Quinton shook his head. "No press. Not now. If they want the truth, they can wait for the report. You're going to get pressure. Public, internal, political. We're already getting media requests. MSNBC, The Hill, even local radios asking for your name." Quinton's expression didn't shift. "Let them guess for now." Across the lot, Denslow sat in the back of the government sedan, not cuffed, but visibly shaken. His department liaison, a red-faced man named Lieutenant Bird, was now on scene, walking in wide circles around the vehicle and muttering into his phone. Inside the gas station, the clerk, a wiry guy with a goatee named Aaron, stood with his arms crossed, watching through the windows. "I've seen him before," Aaron told one of the agents who came in to take his statement. "The cop, Denslow. He always acts real twitchy. Had a yelling match in here once because I wouldn't unlock the beer fridge early. Did you witness today's incident from inside? The agent asked. Aaron nodded. Saw it start. Thought it was a robbery or something. Then I saw the dude kneel and say he was Secret Service. That's when I pulled out my phone. But the lady agent showed up before I could record anything useful. The agent made a note. Would you be willing to make a formal statement if needed? Aaron sighed. Yeah. I don't want that happening to me just because I wear a jacket somebody don't like. Back in the SUV, Kendra looked over at Quinton. You sure you're good? He gave a small nod. I'm used to watching things happen to other people. Not being in the middle of it. You handled it like a machine. I had to. If I moved too fast, I'd be the story. But not the kind that ends in a headline. The kind that ends in a funeral. Mercer didn't say anything for a moment. Then he adjusted his seat and turned to Rachel. What's the department doing about Denslow's status? Placed on administrative leave pending full investigation. No badge, no gun, no access to internal systems. IA is opening a parallel inquiry, she replied. Governor's office called yet? Not yet, but I give it an hour, maybe less. Outside, the crowd had mostly thinned. A few stayed back, waiting to see if there'd be more drama, but most just left with their own stories to tell. Stories they'd probably bring up over dinner or post on Facebook later that night. One woman, thin, silver braids, leather sandals, leaned into her car window and said to her daughter, You see that man? That's how you hold your ground without losing your soul. Quinton, still seated inside the SUV, stared straight ahead. Not angry, not gloating, just processing. This isn't just about me, he said finally. This happens all the time. Only difference is I had a badge and backup. Most people don't. Kendra rested her hand briefly on the back of the seat in front of her. And that's why it matters that the whole country saw it happen. But the conversation wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The fallout was about to get louder, and this time nobody could pretend they hadn't seen it. By early afternoon, the footage had already become the top trending topic across multiple platforms. The hashtag #QuintonDre was plastered across feeds alongside captions like, He stayed calm, they tried him, they failed, and How many times has this happened when no one's filming? Cable news stations ran the story on repeat, their lower thirds reading, Black Secret Service official wrongfully detained at gas station. Officer draws gun on federal agent, caught on video. And just like that, the small town of Spartanburg became the center of a national conversation. Inside a secure DHS command post, Quinton sat at a long steel table as legal advisors and communication officers debated strategy. We can't keep your name out of it anymore, said Marianne Cho, DHS Media Counsel. Your photo's already out. Somebody from your high school posted a yearbook pic, and the local newspaper confirmed your position. They're requesting an on-camera interview. Another added. CNN, PBS, even a morning show. Quinton rubbed his forehead, leaning back in his chair. I don't want to be the face of anything, but you already are, Cho said gently. Even if you don't speak, the footage does. He glanced toward the muted TV in the corner. On screen, a clip played showing him kneeling calmly on the asphalt while Denslow's gun hovered inches from his head. The audio wasn't needed. The image said enough. The room quieted when a field agent entered with a folder. Preliminary review of Officer Denslow's personnel file. She announced. Multiple complaints for aggressive conduct, 2 use-of-force incidents in the past 5 years, no suspensions, all complaints closed without formal discipline. Cho shook her head. They're going to eat that alive on national television. Quinton stood and walked to the window. Outside, the street buzzed with press vans, protesters holding up hand-painted signs, and onlookers just hoping to catch a glimpse. He'd been in high-stakes operations before, international summits, presidential details, overseas threats. But none of it felt like this. Not this personal, not this exposed. A low knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. An older man with salt and pepper hair stepped in. Director Herman Blake, head of regional field operations. Mind if I speak with you alone? Blake asked. The others cleared out without a word. Once the room was empty, Blake leaned against the table. "You handled it better than most would have," he said. "Hell, better than I would have." "I didn't see a choice," Quentin replied. "He made one. I reacted." Blake nodded slowly. "I know men like Denslow. They don't usually see this kind of pushback. Not unless it ends with blood. This time it didn't. That means something." Quentin exhaled through his nose. "It shouldn't have to mean something just because I lived through it." Blake looked at him for a long moment. "You want to walk away from this quietly. I'll support you. But I think people need to hear from someone who didn't lose their cool. Someone who didn't raise his voice, didn't take the bait, didn't reach for anything but his credentials." Quentin looked over at the television again. This time the screen showed side-by-side photos, his federal ID and a still from the video. Commentary scrolled along the bottom. More faces talking than listening. Finally, he turned back to Blake. "Then I want to do it my way. One statement, one time. No spin. Understood." As Blake left, Quentin sat back down and opened a legal pad. He stared at the blank page for a moment, then picked up a pen. Outside, the noise continued to swell. Cars honking in support, microphones shoved into agents' faces, cardboard signs reading, "We saw you," and "Badge Justice" flapping in the wind. But as loud as the outside world had become, the message Quentin was about to write down would quiet every room it entered, because it wouldn't be rage, it would be truth. 3 days later, Quentin stood behind a plain wooden podium in a community hall on the east side of Spartanburg. No flags, no fanfare. Just folding chairs, a modest PA system, and about 200 people who'd packed into the room not to see a politician or a celebrity, but a man they now felt they knew. He didn't wear a suit this time, just slacks and a black sweater, sleeves rolled. His voice was steady, his eyes serious, but not hard. "I've spent over 15 years protecting people who will never know my name," he began. "That's the job. You blend in, you stay sharp, you don't bring attention to yourself. But last week, attention found me anyway." The room stayed quiet. Phones lifted silently, capturing each word. I wasn't mistaken for someone dangerous. I wasn't confused for a threat. I was judged, in seconds. Not because of anything I did, but because of what someone thought they saw. He paused, not for effect, but to find the right words. "I don't hate that officer. I don't even feel anger anymore. What I feel is disappointment. Deep disappointment that someone in uniform, someone who swore to serve, looked at me and saw something he decided didn't belong." In the front row, a group of high school students sat shoulder to shoulder. One of them leaned forward, elbows on knees, not blinking. Quentin continued. "You've probably seen the video. Some of you recorded it. But that wasn't the moment that mattered most. The moment that mattered was when I realized I had to decide who I wanted to be, even while someone else was deciding who I wasn't." He looked down briefly, then back up. "If I had yelled, if I had moved too fast, if I had said one wrong thing, I might not be standing here. And that's the part that scares me." A ripple of quiet agreement spread through the crowd. Not dramatic, just honest. "My niece asked me the other day, 'Uncle Q, why do people treat us different if we didn't do anything wrong?' She's 12, and I couldn't give her a simple answer, because there isn't one." He took a breath. "But I told her this. When someone else lowers the standard, you raise yours. When someone loses their temper, you keep your ground. You show the world who you are, even when they try to rewrite your story before it starts." The audience clapped. Not loud, just enough to let him know they were listening with their hearts, not just their ears. After the event, Quentin stayed behind and shook hands. An elderly man with thick glasses approached him slowly. "I was a police officer in this town for 31 years, he said. "What happened to you? It embarrassed me. But hearing you speak, it reminded me who the badge is supposed to protect." Quentin nodded respectfully. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." Later that night, back at his sister's house, he sat at the kitchen table while his niece, Briar, colored in silence. "Did people believe you today?" she asked softly. "I think so." She didn't look up. Do you think it'll happen again? Quinton didn't answer right away. I think some people will always make the wrong assumptions. But I also think people are watching now, learning, listening. Briar finally glanced up. You didn't yell? No, he said. But I spoke loud enough. But even as the room emptied and cameras turned off, what lingered wasn't the video anymore. It was the voice of a man who refused to let someone else define him. The internal investigation took 2 weeks. Ray Denslow was suspended without pay, pending a disciplinary hearing. His patrol record, once ignored, was now under the microscope. Complaints that were once dismissed as misunderstandings started to look like a pattern. The department released a statement calling the incident regrettable and vowing to review community engagement protocols. It didn't say much. People noticed. Quinton didn't comment. He didn't do the talk shows. He didn't sign book deals or post threads. He went back to work. 3 weeks after the Chevron incident, he stood again in front of a group. But this time, it wasn't cameras or a crowd. It was a classroom of young recruits at a federal training facility in Glencoe, Georgia. Future agents, faces still full of sharp angles and bright ideas. Your job, he told them, isn't just protection. It's not just logistics or surveillance or strategy. Your job is to see, he let the word hang, to see what's really happening in a moment when everything's moving fast, to see what's beneath the surface even when your instincts tell you to jump. Because one wrong decision can't be undone. A trainee raised his hand. Sir, how do you train for something like that? Staying calm, I mean? Quinton smiled, the kind that doesn't stretch too far. You don't train for calm. You train for clarity. And clarity doesn't come from ego. It comes from listening, from patience, from knowing that if you're right, you don't need to yell about it. After the session, a few lingered. One young woman in her 20s approached him quietly. Asian American, maybe 5'3", voice soft but precise. My brother saw your video, she said. He doesn't trust law enforcement at all. But when he saw how you handled it, he said, maybe not all of them. I just wanted you to know. Quinton nodded once. Thank you. He didn't need validation. But moments like that, they mattered. Later that evening, he sat on the small back porch of his hotel, sipping water, watching the horizon fade into dark blue. His phone buzzed with an alert. A national op-ed had just published his full statement, calling it measured, powerful, and overdue. He didn't read the article. Instead, he sent a quick message to Briar. Keep asking questions. That's how we fix things. Love you. She replied seconds later with a picture of a drawing. Him standing tall in his suit next to a figure in a police uniform, both under the words she'd written in thick crayon. Be better than what they expect. He smiled, not because it made everything okay, but because it reminded him that some stories don't end. They just keep teaching. This one taught a few lessons. That respect without bias is a choice. That silence can be strength. That dignity doesn't always come with volume. And maybe most important, that doing your job well isn't enough. You also have to carry it with character, even when the world's pointing a weapon at you. Because how you carry yourself when no one believes you, that's when your real badge shows. If this story moved you, share it with someone. And if you believe in truth over noise, subscribe for more. Stories like this deserve to be told.